deliberate data and architecture choices, and not just the scale of the model or the choice of the model.
Another LLM provider coming up with even more advanced capability.
I think it was long overdue from Apple.
What opportunities does this present for businesses to enhance the decision making
For
process?
example, in our work, we see that a junior developer or analyst uh, who is using AI more effectively are able to improve by leaps and bounds in terms of productivity.
The paper also challenged the popular myth that AI will significantly displace jobs.
Gen AI has really come into prominence now, but it is like the younger sibling of AI which is getting all the attention.
Welcome back to our episode 6, and I'm
Thank
looking
you,
forward
thank
to an
you.
exciting discussion today.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we are, without further ado, we are going to jump right into the topic. And one of the news that is creating a lot of buzz in the media in last uh, week or so is Apple has just published their new paper on their LLM called MM1, and
Correct.
which basically I believe is integrates text and visual information simultaneously.
Right.
So I understand that they announced their LLM first in November 2023, and this paper, which they just came out, is kind of a revolutionary approach to again the LLM. It's very hard to say now who is going first and who is going second. Maybe as we speak, there are another LLM provider coming up with even more advanced capabilities. But let's stick to this right now, MM1, for our discussion today. I wanted to check with you, what do you think will be the impact of Apple's MM1 model in the future of AI applications, particularly generative AI applications, in terms of the text and visual data processing simultaneously? And what opportunities does this present for businesses to enhance the decision making process?
So I think it was long overdue from Apple, and it was good that they have come up with a new paper talking about the large language model that they have developed. And especially in Apple's context, it is very important that it comes up with a lot of multimodal capabilities, process ability to process uh, data from different modalities like images, video, text, audio simultaneously. Right? So, what is really surprising to a lot of researchers is the amount of details that Apple gives out in the paper. And Apple often is a very secretive company, known for its core IP and then keeping things close to their devices and their systems. But a lot of things are very revealing in this paper, and the MMN model includes both dense models up to 30 billion parameters and a mixture of expert variants. And they've talked about how to make the model more efficient, perform better. For example, having images of higher resolution is more important than model size. And then they've also talked about specific points about how model performance can be improved through pre-training and mixing of text and images. So these are very core insights for enterprise Gen AI, uh, that deliberate data and architecture choices, and not just the scale of the model or the choice of the model, are key to building performant multimodal large language or LLMs, right? So, or foundational models. So that is, I would say, the key. That some of these model revelations, some of these nuances that Apple has talked about in this paper are going to be useful for a lot of multimodal adoption of these LLMs.
Awesome. We'll have to now wait and see when Apple hopefully opens up to public
Yeah,
to experiment and maybe try out and compare with other existing LLMs in the market. But clearly revolutionary as we speak today.
correct, correct. And more importantly, I mean, Apple has also put up this game here. So that is, and people will be watching
Yes.
what Apple
Yeah.
does next, right?
Yeah. I see already there is a momentum in their stock. So yeah, I mean, like it's delayed, but finally they came out with something interesting, right?
Right, right,
So
right.
along with that, there was another announcement, and this time it was from Elon Musk's um, X AI. He seemed to be always leaning towards X as the brand name now. They developed I think that the announcement that they came out with was of GROK AI. I believe
Correct.
I took the name correctly, GROK, right? GROK AI. It's a generative AI chatbot, and it was announced recently in media, at least the way it was, the way it is kind of speculated or touted is that it is a response against OpenAI's ChatGPT. So it is interesting that the game that is currently going on. But moving back to Grok AI, uh, so Grok AI's ability to access real-time information through the X platform set it apart from the other AI chatbots that are currently existing in the market. What advantages does this real-time knowledge offer in terms of enhancing the accuracy and relevance of Grok's responses um, to user queries? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, yes. Basically, there is a lot of interest around Grok because it's from Elon Musk, and obviously he was one of the early investors in OpenAI as well.
Yeah,
So what Grok has done, or XAI has done, is released a foundational model called Grok 1, which uh, uh, parts of it will have been used for powering the Grok chatbot on Twitter, right? And Grok 1 is a fairly large model at 314 billion parameters. And it is touted to be arguably very competitive with other modern models. Uh, One thing to say is it is not fine tuned for a specific task, and possibly it is not the same model which powers the Grok AI assistant or the chatbot. So there is probably a lot more extra work that has gone in to power the chatbot. And as you said, the chatbot has access to Twitter data, real time information, and conversations through Twitter. So definitely that is an aspect that everyone should be would be watching out for. It could make it more engaging for the user because you're accessing real time conversations and also real time data feeds. And what Elon has promised is this model has a unique wit associated specifically to him, and promises to deliver a lot more creative output compared to some of the other chatbots which are more guarded in their responses. So that could make things interesting. One is the whole philosophy behind the responses of model, which is also influenced by Elon, and then the real-time engagement information that Grok can potentially extract from Twitter.
it sounds like Grok in some way embodies the Elon Musk persona with innovation with wit. We'll have to wait and see. But you are absolutely right. I mean, having access to a platform like Twitter and having access to real-time conversation data and chat, not just the information bit, but also I think the user experience and all of that coming into picture. We'll have to wait and see. One thing that I'm actually wondering if this is going to be an enterprise ready sort of LLM or a chatbot solution, or will it be more focused on end users, uh, maybe more consumer focused? Or it's going to be
Yeah,
used
that
for a specific
we'll have to
domain.
figure that out. Yeah.
Yeah,
And the model, of course, is not really enterprise ready yet. I mean, it probably requires a lot more work in
fine
terms
tuning.
of be it training or fine tuning. But yes, I mean, we will have to see how X
It
or Twitter
evolves.
evolves this model and the chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Shiva. I think these were both great examples of what's cooking in the media, at least. And with this, we'll wrap up this segment. We'll move to the second segment now, where we discuss enterprise adoption of Gen AI and AI technologies. So let's dive into it. The second part of our discussion today, we are going to focus on a specific paper that came out probably a few months back, still pretty recent, by Forrester. And it actually talks about a sensitive as well as an important topic, which is about how to avoid common AI myths and focus on best practices. I'm sure you have read that paper. I think we briefly touched upon it some time back. I thought it will be very useful for our viewers today to get an insight from what this paper is about and some of the important questions that arises from the paper. So the
Right.
paper highlights four common myths surrounding AI and offers seven best practices to guide organizations towards successful AI integration. The paper also challenged the popular myth that AI will significantly displace jobs by arguing that AI, like other productivity software, primarily enhance job efficiency, which means it's not a job killer, but essentially it's going to enhance the efficiency of current job profiles and portfolios. So I wanted to start with this particular aspects of it, and I wanted to understand what's your take on this. And the second question that I just wanted to club with that is that what impact you foresee on job, specifically on certain roles in the industries that Prescience is involved currently working.
Thought it is also very pragmatic in the sense that we talk about a lot of myths, a lot of hype around AI or generative AI, but that paper was really very uh, insightful in terms of some of the myths that it was trying to bust and talk about how organizations can really take the journey forward, right? So coming back to the productivity aspect of it, absolutely, I agree that AI is a productivity software, and organization will eventually benefit from this. First, in terms of better quality of the output that is being generated using AI versus without it. And the second thing is how can we get backlog of some of the routine or mundane work done more efficiently that typically organizations face with. Uh, for example, in our work, we see that a junior developer or analyst uh, who is using AI more effectively are able to improve by leaps and bounds in terms of productivity. And from a short term perspective, uh, organizations are cautious and they're trying to experiment with Gen AI for mostly internal use cases like knowledge management or improving a knowledge worker's productivity, uh, etc. Uh, but in the long term, we will see that there will be an impact with shift of jobs. I would not say there is going to be uh, uh, job losses, but then there is definitely going to be a shift. with a wider role for those who can use AI to improve their productivity and performance. And by productivity, I also club overall quality with it, because you're cutting down the time that somebody will take to QC the work or review the work, right? An example is faster development and deployment of machine learning models with active use of AI for aspects like exploratory data analysis, as well as exploring various different models that best fit the data, right? So, in a way, I would say we are being enabled by AI to be more productive and more efficient and be uh,
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I think I agree with you on that point. Probably one aspect which will also come into picture is there will be some upskilling required internally within the organization, and a bit of reprocessing of, or the process flow may also need to be looked upon, and see that if that requires any kind of a revisit,
yeah.
refresh. Yeah, with some of these technologies and software coming into play, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
But
I think it
for
is
sure the
best
productivity.
used when you are actually trying to intervene or specifically look at the workflow and then inject AI components which are seamless in
Yeah, yeah, and I think the real gain is productivity, um, quality, and and speed, right? So
yeah,
we are probably going to get benefit out of that. We have seen that already in some of our internal cases.
correct,
Now I'm going to touch upon another important myth that actually is there in the report, which is basically this whole misconception that AI can be expensive for most businesses, right? And the report suggests that leveraging open source AI and prioritizing projects based on business value and technical feasibility is probably the way to go. What's your experience from a Prescience business perspective, balancing the costs and the benefits of AI development, and how do you see that business like Prescience is helping to um, helping in a way to sort of make AI more accessible to the businesses, keeping the cost part of the balance,
correct,
right?
correct. From a cost perspective, I would say is one has to look at a fit for purpose kind of an effort or a model choice. So deploying AI can or a Gen AI model can be expensive if you look at, let's say, deploying the latest like GPT-4 Turbo for every each and every task, or an
Hmm.
model which is supposedly best in class for each and every activity that you want to use a Gen AI model for. Uh, but as the paper rightly points out, there are open source LLMs that can be used, as well as there are smaller. For example, I mean, if you want to use uh, you can use a 5 billion parameter model instead of a 300 billion parameter model, right?
Hmm.
So that is
Hmm.
one area. You can also use quantized models which don't require GPUs to run, and uh, so the choice of the model which is fit for purpose for that task that you're looking at, and then there are various techniques to utilize the models effectively. So you don't want to always go for ground up fine tuning of the model. There can be ways, mechanisms for better prompt engineering, RAG, right? So these are a more efficient model utilizations or pipelines that can be created that needs to be looked at. And then, in fact, the data itself. So are we using the right kind of techniques for pre-processing and the choice of data to give out to the model? So all these are techniques to reduce the cost and improve the effectiveness of models. So one has to look at it holistically and not just look at uh, the best in class performance, which might be published on Hugging Face or some of these sites, and then really look at uh, what is the task, what is the workflow that you're trying to automate, and
Yeah, get it. So I think what I am hearing from you is before the companies or the businesses dive into straightaway implementation phase, it is important to step back and do a discovery session, understand that what really the use case is, and what if this is a priority use case, the complexity that is involved, how critical is it internal, is it external facing, um, and how what data is available, what kind of LLM may suit actually to this specific use cases, right? I think all of this factored will come into that whole consultation phase, in the initial phase, before taking moving ahead with the implementation phase, right?
absolutely, absolutely, the right choice of architecture, design, and the implementation methodology. All of these are very important in driving.
So, in nutshell, I think the cost part is very subjective based on the discussion that or the assessment that takes place in the phase one during the consultation
Correct,
phase.
correct.
So, moving away from there, the report also outlines seven best practices for achieving AI success, including avoiding overly ambitious AI use cases and actively countering biases. Right. So, what's basically your take on that? Those seven best practices that are suggested, do you think it makes sense to sort of align them as part of the project planning and execution approach?
Correct. I mean, and I feel that that is a very pragmatic advice, and not just AI. I think it is relevant for any new technology that we are trying to adopt. We also think it is the best way to implement Gen AI is to really look at quick wins around the use cases which are already being deployed and involving classical machine learning or AI, right? So that way, we are reasonably assured that you have the right data, and the teams that are going to use Gen AI are aware of the right practices and the pitfalls associated with the use of AI as well, right? And question of biases. Like all software, the model outputs need to get evaluated thoroughly and should be really anchored on the data that is specific to the context and the organization. And some of the techniques are uh, appropriate prompting, uh, RAG, fine tuning. These are some techniques which we typically use for anchoring the model output around the data that we want the model to use. And model evaluation is also a very important aspect, and where we typically use alternative prompting techniques, and in fact in some cases uh, another LLM to evaluate the model output which is generated from a different LLM. So these are absolutely certain things that one must follow during the Gen AI adoption life cycle to make sure that we are uh, minimizing the biases, minimizing hallucinations, and anchoring.
Yeah, and I think it perfectly um, sort of syncs with the fact that data quality is so critical, right?
Yes,
To
correct.
sort of navigate through any kind of potential biases. Great. So we will move on from here. The report again suggested the top use cases for AI as of now, um, and it includes, for example, streamlining IT and business processes through automation and enhancing customer interactions. Now, from Prescience' perspective, what are the emerging AI use cases that businesses should be paying attention to in the next few years?
Yeah, so Gen AI has really come into prominence now, and but it is like the younger sibling of AI, which is getting all the attention. In fact, already in production. Uh, but one key thing that we need to look at is what is the data maturity of the organization so that we can deploy AI systems more effectively and across the enterprise. So really, the use cases range across the customer journey. If you look at recommender systems, hyper personalization of campaigns right from your marketing journey, uh, operating efficient supply chains through forecasting demand as well as supply, and then optimizing costs through effective usage of promotions, discount, etc. So these are areas where AI is already being used. And with respect to Gen AI, what it really brings in is the narrative and the fluency behind uh, some of these AI use cases. Uh,
Mm,
a recent study which I read on HBR by a company called Filtered uh, found an interesting split of Gen AI use cases. The top ones were around content creation and editing, technical assistance and troubleshooting, and then personal and professional support, which means people are using Gen AI for a lot of productivity, personal productivity improvement activities. So, from our point of view, also, these are some of the use cases that we are seeing uh, around internal automation and productivity improvements. And one interesting area to watch out is using generative AI to build narrative around traditional machine learning model outputs. For example, I mean, if you're talking about forecasting demand or talking about how uh, uh, a product is getting recommended along with another product, then can we use Gen AI to build a narrative and explain why it is happening, right? So the
mm,
narrative is
interesting.
getting becoming more and more
Interesting. So, the way I'm hearing is that if we were to look at the broader AI is more of predictive side, the Gen AI is more on the generation side, right? So the AI actually sort of the broader AI gives you more actionable um, insights to act on, and Gen AI builds on top of that from narrative perspective to make it more um, communication oriented, right? Um,
right
Interesting.
and contextual,
So, and contextual, of course, yeah,
right?
and based obviously based on natural language, both text and now on images and videos as well. Great. I think these are some great insights, Shiva. Thank you for sharing that with the viewers, and um, we will continue to have this dialogue in the future. But for today, we'll wrap up here, and I look forward to catching up with you again in the coming episodes.